things we touch on through this is the value of value first, value forward driven communication. And so before I get into things, I want to start by practicing what I preach a little bit. The value of sticking with me through these next 20 minutes is we're all going to get to have lunch, so buckle in. All right, so a little bit about me. I'm the Senior Data Science Lead and AI Strategist at Burke. I am the head of community for WA and host the WA After Hours podcast. I am an instructor of business analytics and analytical strategies in business. And I've been in data science and AI for a little over 8 years now. In that time, I have held both solo and siloed data science roles. So first, to just set the stage, let's talk about what this role looks like. This could mean that you are the only data practitioner in an organization, possibly one that is not familiar with this role, possibly one that has had someone in this role before, but right now it's just you. This could also mean that you're silent, so you are the only one embedded into a certain vertical or area. And though this role might look different for different folks, some of the challenges you're going to encounter will likely be the same. Things like dealing with high or unrealistic expectations, that data science, AI is magic, it can solve any problem. We can just take any data, throw it into a model, and want this monumental impact to be made, right? And then on the other hand, you can have this lack of fear of the unknown. Why are we making decisions like this? I like things the way they are. Why is this mysterious black box model? Now what's telling me how I make my decisions? And then you can even find that you yourself have that responsibility to own what this looks like in your area, in your organization overall. But I also want to mention there's opportunities in a role like this. You can be the one to come in and either set or reset expectations around what this kind of work will look like. You can set yourself up as the expert to be referenced when considering new use cases, new tools. You can even position yourself to inform strategy, which therefore gives you flexibility when you're thinking about how you're going to invest your time and which use cases. And so first, I really want to start by saying that something super valuable you can do when you find yourself in a role like this is take the time to set expectations for yourself. And so think about a time where you started on a new project only to later realize that you didn't have the right data, the right resources, even the right investment to help that long-term project come to fruition. That in data science, AI is a really common story, which is why we have so many articles just like these. And if you are in a solo or siloed role, especially if you're just starting out, these can be so intimidating. But if you take that time to set expectations for yourself and those you'll work with, you can increase your confidence in your work, the trust of those who are going to work with you, and you can work together to solve focusing on your problems. They're going to be more likely to drive that impact. And so, when we think about our role like this in any organization, it's really going to come down to about 5 things. We're going to be formulating the right problems for the work that needs to be done, for what we're trying to do, the outcomes in this organization. We're going to be taking the data we have and getting it into a format that works for us. We're going to be building solutions and delivering those solutions sustainable. And we're going to be communicating the results of the work we're doing, sharing the impact of that with those in and across our organization. So when you think about this role in an organization, there are 3 parts that I want you to consider as you're setting these expectations. And the first is what needs to be done. Now this is a combination of a few things. What you are trying to invest your time in here, if there's any expectations for what this role will look like in the organization, where the data is, if it's accessible to you, if it's of good enough quality for the work you need to do, and if not, who do you need to work with to get it up to the mark. And then you need to think about who's going to benefit, who's going to make decisions off of the work you're doing, who are the champions that are going to support you in communicating the value of this work to the board. And then you're going to think about the who and the where. So what areas do you work with occasionally, frequently, maybe for one-offs? And what kind of use cases and projects you're going to focus on in each of those cases? Are you going to be type 1 area? Are you going to focus on people who are up in areas? Or are you going to have a more consultative role to an entire organization? Think about those things and then bring that to others. and the resources that are available to help you do that. And so once you've thought about those things, what you can actually do is combine those with what you're going to do in which areas, who will support you to drive that impact, who will benefit. And you can formulate a mission statement of sorts that you can take and you can share with others. And so what you might be thinking right now is, and I know because I got this question, is why do I need something to share like this? And maybe you don't. It depends on your board. It depends on your needs, your goal. It depends on the expectations you set. But I'm going to tell you 3 things that are true whenever you're introducing any new technology to an organization. And that's that investing in that new technology will mean doing things differently for a lot of people. And for that, you are going to need people on board. To make this succeed, you will have to do that together. And so these goals like this are really just a very clear and concise thing that you can share with others to help them understand the support you can provide, the scope that will cover, and what collaboration and the value that comes from it looks like. Because investment like this is always going to be easier to support when it comes with these defined, understandable goals and impact. So, the next thing that I want to talk about is how you set expectations for those that you're going to be working with. And so, if you've been in a data practitioner role, you've probably encountered a situation where you spend a lot of time working on a project only to later realize that every person has a different idea of what that final product needs to look like. An unfortunate situation, but one that's also preventable. So if we start aligned with our stakeholders, it is so much easier for us to stay aligned along the process. Having things like a shared vocabulary, aligning on a common set of definitions at the start, making sure that we always establish a single source of truth for any values, any metrics that we're going to be taking along with us. Because when everyone speaks the same language, it is so much easier for us to work together to solve those problems. And another thing we wanted to talk about is what the process looks like itself. Because if you ask every single one of your stakeholders what data science, predictive analytics, what that process of that solution looks like, you could get a different answer from every single person in that room. And so what we want to do is actually set expectations for the process itself, because that helps demystify that time to value. And something that happens when we enhance organizational maturity, and we move from traditional analytics into things like predictive analytics, into things like data science, is that there is a longer time to value for that work. And so what we can actually do is share intentionally about the deliverables to expect, about how those tie to your key goals and outcome. And that helps us establish a mutual willingness to reframe and reset our expectations when necessary. And we also want to communicate what data science is not, because this is going to help set expectations around what the scope of our work looks like and what it doesn't. Because not every approach is going to work for every problem. We are not always going to have a return on our investment, because data science is not always fast to implement, and it's not always successful. And really what we want to emphasize is it's not always necessary. This can be a great way to incrementally improve the value of the data in your organization, but both you and your organization need to know when to use it and why. And so, one of the ways that we help ourselves understand that when, that what, and why, is by engaging intentionally with our stakeholders to understand and figure out what their goals, what their needs are, and how they align to the organization overall. So we want to think about and ask about the short and long-term goals and needs, if there's ongoing requests and concerns. And now that we're sharing our goals and setting those expectations, what they would include when we have access to this technology and these enhancements through this partnership trial. And these perspectives are really what's going to help us think big picture. This context on the problems, the needs, the goals, that helps us bring together what problems we should be focusing on. But something that I want to call out, especially for those that are so solo or siloed, is that when you only ask one section of your stakeholders, you only get one section of the perspective. And so what I want to share with you is something that I found to be very, very helpful. And this is what I call the road trip strategy. Basically, sorry, some of my animations aren't working, but I promise that one was very cool. So basically with the road trip strategy, what you're doing is you're connecting with those that are in and adjacent to your space. And you are asking them questions to help understand what the problems are, the value of solving them, who knows about them, and who would need to be involved to solve them correctly. And as you're talking to all of those folks, you are sharing super valuable information, those goals that you previously determined, the difference between traditional analytics and technologies like data science and predictive analytics, and example use cases, either of what you've done or even articles that share the potential of what you can do if those people are to collaborate with you. And so as you're asking these folks and talking to them and asking them who else you should connect with next, what you're doing is you're building out a web of perspectives that give you a bigger picture of the entire organization. And you're going to be able to identify pockets of opportunities. And within those, you will be able to find the right starter projects that drive that value and give you some of those quick wins. And so when we're talking about how we identify the right problems, the right opportunities, what we want to do is focus on the use cases that are clearly defined, the ones that are impact driven, the ones that we can see the value from the start when we have a timeline for that MVP. We always want to ensure that we avoid data science just for data science sake, right? And so, as we are approaching those problems, once we've defined them, we want to take those and we want to define and align the value in the context of our business goals. Because a lot of times when we present an opportunity like this, something that we get asked about is why would we invest 6 months into this if we don't know what the value would look like? And thinking like this allows you to approach that proactively. Because you can talk about the benefits to individuals and to the organization overall. You can talk about the expected actions that can be taken, what can be done differently, updated, or improved. And you can provide supporting data, not just for what goes into building a solution, but the data that comes out of it to prove the value of what you're doing. And you also don't have to start by trying to solve the biggest problems first. You can and should start with the quick wins. These are the things that don't require a major lift on your part, but still show value and begin to build that trust with your stakeholders. But once you have built that trust, you can start to figure out how you work together to accelerate and differentiate in this space, where those biggest opportunities lie, and how you can provide that unique value to your customers, to your users, and always focusing on those use cases that are repeatable and reproducible. One thing that I want to just touch on briefly is the value of design thinking when you're working in any role that involves data. This is a mindset that helps us connect the needs of our users and the goals of our organization with the support we provide on the data side. It's also highly iterative, which helps us in how we're striving to get to that MVP. It helps us consider the different perspectives that are in the room. And it helps us in a lot of the work that we do in data science because it helps us tie all of those pieces together. Now, I won't go super deep into this because we're limited on time, but if you work in data, I highly recommend you check out design thinking because it will enable you to find insights in a different way and consider perspectives that improve the work you're doing. And so, not every approach is always going to work out. And so, I like to say that data science is like improv. I also want to say that I have not done improv, but I do kind of know how it works. So, I continue to use this metaphor. But sometimes with data science, there's more you can do. And you say yes, and let's do more. Other times, you're not taking the right approach, you have to reframe. The data you have can't answer the question it needs to. But what you can do instead of saying no, is say no but. And you can reframe that problem to answer an adjacent question that's share your work. And so, I touched a little bit on this already, but having this value-first approach to communication is so valuable, right? I shared how very, very soon we all get to have lunch, and I'm going to come back to that because it's really exciting. But if you do things like demonstrate value in status updates, deliver value incrementally along the way, delivering things that provide insight back into the process, and focus on sharing the numbers early and often, sharing impact over methodology, you are going to communicate in a way that your stakeholders are more likely to be on board, stay on board, and be willing to support you in your approach. I also want to tie in the value of documentation. Good documentation is essential, even if initially it feels like it's only for you as a solo or silent practitioner. Because without it, you run into situations like this, situations that I've been in, and likely have many others. But really with this, I want to focus on what it means to have user-focused documentation. And really what this means is, well, it's very small. Thinking about who our audience is, and then considering what they need, what context they need to have. And if you start looking at it in this way, you can use the context overlap between those individuals to identify any gaps in your documentation and start to segment it in a way that works for you. And then also just be thinking about what people want from the documentation. And if they take it and share key information with others, can they do that correctly? And your documentation can also work for you. You can use it to increase the visibility of your presence within your organization. If you share it where it's easily accessible, it can be shared and searched, stakeholders can check in, and you can keep track of updates. People are going to be more likely to use it. And I also want to mention that you can use the principles of SEO to make that documentation more visible. Highlight any keywords, incorporate those into your documentation, and keep track of project nicknames, because we often start with one really official name that's known by our leaders, and then we end up with anywhere from 2 to 100 nicknames that are known to different pockets of people. So make your documentation the place that people should go and the place that people can find. And so just as we're wrapping up, I want to share that these key takeaways to succeeding in a solo or siloed role: define goals that are shareable and keep you on track, start aligned to stay aligned along the process, set expectations early, focus on the right problems and reframe those problems together if necessary, and communicate the value early, often, and openly. And remember that you as a data practitioner are not always the only one that makes this process successful. Your team members can and should help you along the process. And if you use these tactics, you will know how to help them. So you can all drive value